Welcome to the Interstate Bridge Replacement ESG meeting for March 6, 2025. Thank you to everybody who has attended, and we were looking forward to getting started very soon. All right, next slide. Let's go. We're going to do a little bit of housekeeping for people for access. So I'm going to go through a little bit of this before we get started. We have closed captions in English and Spanish. English closed captions are available within the Zoom and YouTube. Users can follow this link here to view both English and Spanish captions in a separate browser. Next slide. So how to access closed captions. So at the bottom middle of your screen, you should see a menu of options. If you can't see the menu, hover your mouse over the bottom middle of the screen. And two, you can see down at the bottom there, closed captions with a CC icon and a separate window, and captions will appear. So today we're in a webinar format, so I have some participation tips. Appreciate you joining us today. We encourage panelists to turn your video on. It's great to see you, and we'd like to see you there. Please keep your audio on mute when not speaking. And before speaking, please state your name and affiliation to help attendees identify who's talking. If you experience technical difficulties, please contact program staff at this phone number, 360-931-5839. So we have the opportunity for comments to the ESG, the Executive Steering Committee. So here's some instructions. So there's an opportunity to provide brief public input to ESG later in the meeting today. And to submit input after the meeting, you may email the comments to info@interstatebridge.org with ESG Public Comment in the subject line. You can also call 888-503-6735 and state ESG Public Comment in your message. So we have a few meeting ground rules I'd like to review with everyone. We're requesting you honor the agenda, listen to understand, and ask questions to clarify. Be hard on the problems and soft on the people. Address interests and seek common ground, and provide a balance of speaking time. And as your facilitator, I will assist with these ground rules as a reminder. Thank you. So our meeting agenda today, we're going to be meeting from 9 to 10 a.m. We'll have some welcome and introductions of the ESG, and then program updates, a review of the draft SEIS comment overview, opportunity for public comment, and then next steps and closing. I want to mention that we did receive some public comments for this meeting written, and they are available on our website if you'd like to review those. Okay, next slide. So why don't you go back to the slide before? We're going to go around for some welcome and introductions. My name is Anita Keilani Yap, and I am the facilitator for the Executive Steering Committee, and I'm really glad to be here. So what I would like to do first is we have a few new members on our Executive Steering Committee. So first I would like to introduce our new Washington DOT Secretary, Julie Meredith, and we have, it looks like maybe Carly, are you here for an introduction? Doesn't look like it. The other new member that we have is City Councilor Olivia Clark from the City of Portland. Welcome, Councilor Clark. If you'd like to introduce yourself for a few minutes. Typically, what we do is we do a round robin at the very beginning for each member of the ESG, just a few minutes for updates, but we'd love to have an opportunity for you to introduce yourself.
Well, sure. I'm Olivia Clark, counselor from City Council District 4. I'm also the chair of the City Council's Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. I'm happy to be here. I have a certain amount of history with the IBR going back over 10 years. So really pleased to be here and to be your liaison to the city.
Thank you, Councillor Clark.
Good to see some familiar faces. Hello, everybody.
Welcome. We're glad to have you here. So I think we'll go next to Mayor Ann from the City of Vancouver. Welcome.
Good morning. Ann McInerney-Ogle, Mayor for the beautiful city of Vancouver on the north bank of the Columbia River. It's nice to see all the Southerners here.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Next, we'll have Metro Council President Lynn Peterson. Welcome, Lynn.
Good morning, everyone. Lynn Peterson, Metro Council President. No updates.
Thank you, Lynn. Next, we will have ODOT Director Chris Strickler.
Good morning, everybody. It's great to see everybody again. Counselor, welcome back into the fold. It's good to see you as well. And congratulations. Happy to be here today. And my update is really brief. We are in the midst of budget cycle and legislative session. We have a major funding shortfall on our operations and maintenance side. And I will spare you all of the additional update because I'm sure you've been reading about it in the media. So great to see everybody. And thank you for participating today.
Thank you, Chris. Next, we will have, let's see, JC Vanetta from TriMet.
Good morning, everyone. JC Vanetta, Executive Director of Public Affairs, Councillor Clark, who used to be my old boss. It is so good to see you and have you aboard. Looking forward to working with you.
Thank you, JC. Next, we'll have Dale Robbins.
Dale Robbins, I'm the planning manager at RTC. I'm filling in for Matt today. No real updates, just glad to work with the other partners.
Thank you, Dale. Leanne Carver, CTRAN. Well, Leanne, you're on mute. Can you unmute yourself?
Darn it, I hit a click, sorry. Leanne Caver, here at CTRAN, and glad to see everyone this morning, and no updates at this time.
Thank you, Leanne. Next, we'll have Curtis Robinold from Port of Portland.
Morning, everyone. Curtis Robinhold, Port of Portland. No updates this morning.
Thank you, Curtis. Let's see, Jack Berkman from Port of Vancouver.
Good morning, Jack Berkman, Commissioner, Port of Vancouver. Very brief update. Last week, the Board of Commissioners awarded HME Construction of Vancouver a public works contract to replace our Terminal 1 dock at the waterfront. This follows a recently completed installation of new concrete bulkhead wall and deep soil mixing, ground improvements, a place to protect the dock during a seismic event. They're going to be installing 241 structural and fender piles and about 59,000 square feet of reinforced concrete deck surface. This is designed specifically to accommodate our new public market at Terminal 1, which you'll often hear us talking about as we work through ESG. And I also want to invite everybody. This evening, we are kicking off our annual lecture series at the Kiggins Theater. It's going to be updates. It's the first of 3 of them. And this will be about the Maritime Museum. And then we'll have 2 more, which will include updates from the port. And that's my update today.
Thanks so much, Jack. We also are grateful to have our Community Advisory Group co-chair from Washington, Lynn Ballantyre.
Good morning. I don't have an update, but I will say that I am doing my best to represent both myself and my co-chair, Ed Washington. So thank you for the opportunity to see everyone again. It's been a little bit.
Thank you, Lynn. We're glad you're here. Is there anybody that I missed?
Hi, Anita. This is Julie Meredith, Secretary of Washington State.
Oh, Julie.
Hi. I just wanted to say hello. I don't have the extended history of some of the members here, but I'm happy to be here. And like Chris said, we are in the middle of a difficult legislative session. We had the same financial outlook that Chris described, and we're working through that, but I'm happy to be here today. I am headed to a public event with our governor later in about an hour, so I'll be moving, but happy to be here and participate. Thanks.
Thank you, Secretary Meredith. Congratulations on your appointment, and we look forward to working with you. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. So I think we've got everybody, and I think we'll move on. So for program updates, we'll have Greg Johnson, Frank Green, and Ray Mabey. So I'll hand it over to Greg.
All right. Thank you, Anita. Good morning, everyone. Well, we've the last time we had conversation was back in October, and that was before we completed the draft supplemental public comment period. So a lot of things have been going on. And one of the reasons we wanted to meet with you guys is to make sure that we are keeping the profile of the program up front and not going dark as we are looking at 10,000 comments that you'll hear about characterized later in this meeting. But we're still, this slide should be familiar to most of you. This is our program schedule slide. We are in the green environmental box. Once again, we've completed the draft supplemental process, and we are steaming towards a final supplemental environmental impact statement and a record of decision. We hope to be sometime within the next year. So the team is focused. We're working with our federal partners. We know we have some uncertainty with our federal partners, but we are working with them to hold the schedule as closely as possible. But other things are still ongoing. We're working on permitting, which you will hear about from my colleague Ray Mabey. We're also still doing preliminary design to make sure that when we are ready to put out a request for proposals, we have enough information for the contracting industry to give us good proposals. So we have a couple of projects, the orange box of pre-construction. We have a project that is going to happen to tear down the ODOT truck inspection building. We also have a ground improvement project on Hayden Island that will come up sometime this year. And once again, we're hoping as we keep moving forward and get that record of decision to start construction as soon as that happens. So our funding, as far as our funding, Frank Green is going to cover that issue of where we're at with our grants. We're continuing to do tribal consultation, and our community engagement is still ongoing and robust. We're going to make sure, once again, we do not go dark so the public knows exactly where we're at and where things are going. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Frank Green to talk about our funding. So Frank.
Thank you, Greg. Just wanted to kind of highlight this. This table is a table I think we've shown this group several times in the past. A couple of key changes since last we met, though. We still have the kind of the committed state funds that are near the top of the table. But as you get toward the middle of the table, instead of kind of a note that says awarded for the Bridge Investment Program grant and the USDOT Mega Grant, the program was able to work very closely with our federal partners at Federal Highways, as well as USDOT, to get those two grants awarded in mid-January this year. So with the awards, sorry, not awarded, but executed. So we have grant agreements for both of those grants, and we do have some of the funds obligated to be able to spend on preliminary engineering, with a bulk of the funds coming, as we are able to transition into future phases of the program, such as construction or right-of-way acquisition. Those two grants being executed were an important step for us to be able to move forward with utilizing some of those funds, and we'll be working very closely with our federal partners as we progress through the development of the program. Another change on the table here is what's shown as the US DOT Reconnecting Communities Pilot Grant. That is a grant application that the program worked very closely with the City of Vancouver on to help develop. City of Vancouver submitted that and was awarded $30 million from that program. The intent behind that grant is to fund the community connector that we are currently showing just south of Evergreen between downtown Vancouver and the Historic Reserve. So really excited to be able to partner with City of Vancouver on that grant opportunity, and we'll begin the process of moving toward a grant, the actual grant itself, looking to get it executed. I think we'll be having a kickoff meeting where we'll support the city on that later this month. So those are kind of some of the key changes in the funding. We are also still working, as Secretary Meredith said, with our legislature on a bill that will allow us on the Washington side to bond against tolling. So that's a bill that's currently being worked through our legislature this session. And with that, I will turn it over to Ray to give an update on our bridge permit.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Ray Mabey, Assistant Administrator. Giving an update on our latest with the U.S. Coast Guard bridge permit. Just a quick recap. The program submitted an initial navigation impact report that collected a lot of information from river users to understand the needs of the river. The Coast Guard put that out for public comment and then issued a determination that they needed a bridge of the current height, 178 feet or unlimited. So they didn't think that our work showed that we're meeting the reasonable needs of navigation. So as we looked at that and the comments that they made in that letter or that determination, we've continued to look at the river, the bridge logs to understand vessels going underneath, and do extra research in partnership with the Coast Guard to help identify vessels that transit under the bridge to understand the actual height of clearance they needed as they transited under the bridge. So we understood that. Historic users, but also looking at the commercial navigation trends and needs upriver to make sure that we're understanding fully the potential upriver use and how that could impact the needs for additional bridge height than our proposed fixed span bridge. We've also done some navigation simulation with river pilots to understand how they how they transit under the bridge, under the proposed bridge with the new piers, to understand what their thoughts on safety operations, and receive some pretty favorable feedback from that. Well, let's go to the next slide, please. And we also know that we are working with the potentially impacted river users. So we've identified 5 entities to date, 3 fabricators that are based at the Columbia Business Center, and 2 businesses that use the river for derrick barges and other business. We've reached a tentative agreement with, or is finalizing agreements with 2 of the fabricators. The third you may have heard about in the news just before Christmas is Vigor, and it seems what we've read there is that they've stopped their complex fabrication portion of their business here, as well as at their location in Clackamas. And so we are in a conversation with them to understand what potential impacts their business would have given that ceasing of that complex fabrication, which is really the large modules and other pieces that would be challenged by a bridge height of 116 feet. So we're trying to figure out if there's any there with them. And then the other businesses are Advanced American Construction, which Frank and I have met with, and we are working on what their thoughts of their potential impacts are, actively work with them, as well as JT Marine. We've in current talks with them and exchange of information to understand their impact. So discussions are moving forward in a positive way. People are coming to the table, and we're very pleased about that. So once we get these agreements finalized, we'll be submitting a revised or updated navigation impact report to the U.S. Coast Guard. They will initiate another public comment period, and then with the agreements that we have in place at that time, we anticipate that there will be very few to zero, hopefully zero comments from river users saying that they are impacted by a bridge height of 116 feet. That will help the Coast Guard hopefully see that we are meeting the reasonable needs of navigation with our bridge height, and that they can issue a new determination for our fixed span height of 116 feet. And we'll be looking at that bridge permit later this year with really, and early next year for our fixed span bridge, with really waiting for that permit to come through officially about the middle of next year. So moving forward in a positive way, not necessarily as fast as we like, but I think we will be able to bring this home. And I think I turn it next to maybe Chris. Yes.
Yes. Chris, before we get started with you, are there any questions from the ESG about any of the presentations so far? Councillor Clark. You can unmute yourself.
Yeah,
There
thank you. Right. Just finding the button. I heard two different bridge heights. Did I during the presentation? Where are we at now?
So, Councilor Clark, yeah, good question. The current bridge height is at its open position is 178 feet, and that's what the initial determination from the Coast Guard asked for. We have a movable span option in the NEPA that Chris will be talking about that does allow for 178 feet, but we also have our fixed span bridge that doesn't open, that is proposed at 116 feet clear. And so that is the fixed span clearance that we are hoping to get a bridge permit for. Great.
Thanks, Ray. Any other questions before we move on? All right. Looks like next we have Chris Regan, our IBR Environmental Manager, draft SEIS comment overview. Thank you.
Thanks, Anita. Good morning, everybody. Great to be with you. Again, Chris Regan, Environmental Manager for IBR. I'm going to provide the overview of comments we've received on the draft supplemental EIS. And my overview is going to include a little bit of discussion of what we did to collect comments, get the community ready to collect comments, dive a little bit into what those comments were specifically, and then take a look at next steps. So we're starting here with what IBR did to collect some comments. And starting probably about the last half of 2024, our IBR team went out to make sure that the community was poised, ready to lend their voice to this monumental endeavor here, providing comments, helping us see how we should move forward with the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program. So to do that, we had 8 events, including hearings, briefings, and open houses. Those events were both virtual as well as in person. See a couple pictures here on the south end of our program. We also had 61 briefings to jurisdictions, agencies, neighborhood associations, and advisory groups where we met individually or presented for those groups. Our team reached out and coordinated with community engagement liaisons so that we could connect with community members within their language, their native language. And we had some good results with that effort as well. And then we also had a comprehensive outreach and notification plan. And that included 8 events with approximately 400 interactions, as we discussed, the draft virtual community briefings, 2 public briefings and Q&A sessions, in-person public briefings and open house events, and virtual public hearings. We had 8 tabling events with approximately 500 interactions. During the 60-day comment period, IBR team took a multi-pronged approach, making sure that the information held in the draft was accessible and that individuals knew how to comment and provide meaningful comments for the IBR to act upon. One of the things that we did was holding in-person events. Engagement included, as you can see in these pictures, people interacting directly, answering questions, showing people where their interests are within role plots. We also had language translation and interpretation support. On top of that, notification included e-blasts. We had 6 e-blasts that reached about 7,200 people, sent mailings to about 91,000 addresses. We canvassed the program area, households and businesses, and we put ads in 12 print and digital outlets, which included 8 radio stations, and we had also advertisements on C-Tran and TriMet vehicles, and we had 1 billboard. Our ads included 5 translated ads, and we estimate that we reached out to about 3.2 million people. On top of that, we had earned in social media. It generated about 141 stories, reaching about 2 million folks, 155 total posts on social media. We had paid ad campaigns and posted content in 9 different languages. A lot there. So that led us to a receipt of approximately 3,600 submissions. And want to make sure that we stress this a little bit because you don't want to complicate it too much. A submission is an email or a letter or a comment form, but within each of those, there might be one or a multitude of comments. And so with those 3,600 submissions, we received approximately 10,000 individual comments. And our team has been separating those comments and putting them in different categories or themes. And you can see a list of some of those here. So with 10,000, you put hundreds behind the number, you've got generally the number of submissions we receive. So we've got about 2,700 transportation comments, 1,300 design, etc. Within our events, and as I described a little bit earlier, we also had submissions that from in different languages. And so there were approximately 25 total submissions that were included in different languages. We've reached out to our federal partners and defined that we will ensure that our final supplemental has those comments, those submissions in their native language, and we will answer them in their native language. And we will also interpret both the submission as well as the answer in English within the final supplemental. The biggest category here on our pie chart is other, and it's important to recognize that category includes a number of the other environmental focus areas. There were over 30 different areas that we looked at in the draft supplemental. So you've got 9 of them here. There were another 21 or so, and so this is just those categories that had less than about 200 different comments, as well as statements of personal preference. I don't like tolls. I do like light rail. Those kind of comments that didn't necessarily change analysis or point to specific aspects were also included in that category. Next slide. Yep. So now I'm going to dive into specific category areas. For transportation, again, about 2,700 comments were received. Talked about travel patterns, mobility for cars, trucks, freight transit. Talked about transit riders, pedestrians, and bicyclists. Common themes were looking at capacity, number of lanes, bottlenecks outside of the program area and how that might influence the program, freight, transit, traffic modeling, safety, active transportation. Next slide. Also, as said, about 1,300 in design. Those common themes included integration of travel modes within the program, focus on seismic resilience of the bridge, talk about elevation and grade of the multi-use path and how easy it would be to use those, and specific aesthetics of bridge and different designs within the program area. About 600 comments on tolling. Included both tolling interstate bridge as well as other regional tolling efforts. So there were issues or statements of opinions on tolls, discussion of or questions about toll discounts and exemptions, And then also statements around effects of tolls on Hayden Island residents specifically. For alternatives and bridge components, about 600 comments came in. Common themes included questions about IBR's consideration of other alternatives, including third bridge, tunnels, high-speed rail, ideas about retrofitting the existing bridge instead of building a new one, and then also focus on the different bridge design options that were presented within the draft supplemental. And so specific statements or questions clarifying those design options. And so that's kind of the light dive into the different themes that we heard within those comments. For our next step, the IBR program is currently working to walk through all those 10,000 comments and working to understand how those comments might refine design considerations or update analysis as required. That update to the design and analysis will be incorporated into the final supplemental. And every comment and response will be incorporated into the final supplemental. It'll be part of that document. The responses are going to include or acknowledge any updates the program has made to design options and or analysis as a result of those comments. It's also wanted to make sure that we let ESG know that our program's working very hard right now to post all of those raw comments onto our website. And so we hope to get that out very soon, if not this week, early next week. So those comments will be out there and be able to be viewed by the public accessing our website. Those will be out there while we continue to coordinate closely with federal, state, and our local partners to ensure that the refinements are made that'll be included, like I said, in the final supplemental that will be published late 2025. And that was a whirlwind through the public comments. But I think that's my last slide.
Thank you, Chris. That was a lot and
Yes.
good work. So before we move on to public comment, I just want to check with ESG to see if you have any questions about anything related to the last presentation with Chris. Seeing none, I think we'll move on. So we'll have this opportunity for folks that are on the webinar to have some public
Anita.
Mayor Ann's
Jump
hand
Oh,
in.
is up.
sorry.
I think the mayor has a comment.
Oh, Mary Ann, please go ahead.
Sorry, Anita. Chris, did we get comments from airplane pilots from Pearson? Or is there a separate category or a special category for that?
We do have an aviation category, and so any concerns around the airport, PDX and Pearson would be included in that category. It would be less than the 200 though, Marianne, so but we will have those documented, whatever we've received.
Great, thank you so much.
Yep.
Thanks, Mayor. And
There were about 15 comments on aviation.
anyone else before we move on? Okay, thank you. So we're going to move on to public comment. So next slide. We have some ESG comment instructions. So to make a verbal comment, if you join the Zoom, click raise hand. If you join by phone, excuse me, press *9 to raise your hand. The facilitator, me, will call on you and you'll receive an unmute request. Please accept it. If you're commenting by phone, dial or press *6 to unmute. Please provide your name and affiliation. Attendees will be allocated up to 2 minutes for public comment, depending on the number of commenters, up to a total of 10 minutes for public comment. If we run out of time and you have not had a chance to speak, you can still provide comments after the meeting. Next slide. And this is how you can do it. So submit comment to ESG after the meeting is fill out the comment form on the program website. or email comments to info@interstatebridge.org with ESG Public Comment in the subject line. You can also call 888-503-6735 toll-free and state ESG Public Comment in your message. All written comments must be received prior to 48 hours in advance of each upcoming meeting in order to be distributed to ESG members. Comments received after that point will be distributed to members in advance of their next meeting. All comments are posted on the IBR website. Okay, next slide. Oh, okay, let's go back to there we go. So it looks like we have two folks with their hand up. So the first one I see is Sarah Iannarone, and Sarah will give you a time count down and bring you in to have comment. And next up is Chris Smith and then Bob Ortblad.
Good morning. Thank you, Anita, and thank you, esteemed members of the committee, for hearing my testimony. My name is Sarah Iannarone, and I am Executive Director of the Street Trust and the Street Trust Action Fund. We are working to ensure our region's transportation future is safe, multimodal, and equitable for all system users, but especially those who can't or don't drive due to age, ability, income, or other reasons. With so much uncertainty at the federal level, we can't afford to be divided as a region. We don't need uniformity, but we do need unanimity. United we stand, divided we fall. We've been down this road before. Over a decade ago, a handful of folks essentially killed the Columbia River crossing. Now we're looking at a replacement bridge that's likely going to cost us 3 times the original ask. That's a lot of money when you're multiplying billions. For the first time in a long time, City of Portland's newly elected council has a clear majority committed to active and public transportation, including light rail. As an LPA partner, if the conditions of the project change, so can their approval. We need to move forward with all of the partners at the table in support of the proposed transit on the bridge, not just some. Let me be clear, this bridge project cannot move forward without light rail. And also, let's be clear about public safety. The real danger to people in the area around this bridge is serious injury and death from traffic crashes. We do not support decades-old crime train rhetoric. We've evolved beyond that as a region. We have the ability and the responsibility to create a comprehensive public safety plan that ensures all users of this bridge feel safe and comfortable regardless of the mode they choose. The Street Trust conducted significant public education and engagement on both sides of the river during the NEPA process, during which personal comfort and safety for active and public transportation users emerged as a primary concern. The NEPA process matters, and we should let it guide us in mitigating safety concerns. I grew up in New York State. If New York and New Jersey can work together to keep the PATH trains running, I trust that Oregon and Washington can do the same. If that means creating a bi-state transit authority, let's do it, because this isn't the end of our shared public transit investments. It's just the beginning. Please don't hesitate to reach out for our support in getting this work done together. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sarah. Next up, we have Chris Smith.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to comment before the committee. I'm representing the Just Crossing Alliance. That is the group of 36 environmental, transportation, environmental justice, land use organizations that are seeking the most sustainable and equitable possible outcomes from this project. And we're very much in agreement with Sarah's point. This project only works if we include transit. I know there's a lot of debate at the moment in public about how we fund the transit operations. We just want to emphasize that to get to a sustainable and equitable outcome from this project, we have to work our way through that. And I encourage all of you to be actively engaged in that process as we figure out how to make transit and active transportation work in this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chris. Next up is Bob Ortblad.
You hear me?
We can hear you.
Very good. I'm Bob Ortblad, a Washington resident, and 40 years a civil engineer, and also a certified public accountant. Please study my written comments. The IBR's $6 billion cost estimate is 2 years old and likely to double ODOT's I-5 Abernathy Bridge has tripled in cost. WashDOT's Portage Bay Bridge was 70% over engineer's estimate. ODOT's recently doubled its estimate of a new Hood Canal Bridge. The IBR's bridge design is much larger and has much greater cost risk than any of these three projects. The CRC first attempted to drill test shaft, failed when it hit rocks. The IBR plans to drill 100 shafts in unpredictable Columbia River bottom. Each drilled shaft on the Abernathy Bridge took 1 month. The Columbia River has only a 4-month in-water work window. Drilling 4 shafts per year will take 25 years. The IBR supplemental EIS says, quote, adhering strictly to the published in-water work guidelines would more than double the anticipated construction timeline of a modified LPA. An immersed tunnel alternative that the IBR has fraudulently disqualified needs no drilled shafts and could save up to $500 million. An immersed tunnel is supported by the displacement of its weight, similar to a floating bridge. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. I think it looks like that is all of the folks that are wanting to provide public comment. And again, you're able to provide comment online, as we'd shown on the previous slide. So we were going to move on to next steps and closing with Greg Johnson.
Once again, thank you, Anita. So if we could go to the next slide, thank you. So once again, the team is laser focused on getting through the final steps of the environmental process, which is reaching a final supplemental environmental impact statement. We are anticipating sometime late this year, early next year to accomplish that goal. And on the heels of that will be a record of decision. So those things, there's a lot of work in between those milestones happening. So we will be doing refinements to the design and technical analysis, and still doing a great deal of public outreach to keep the public informed of the work that's going on. So we are we're in a unprecedented era with our federal partners and some uncertainty that they are facing, but they are committed to getting us through this process and seeking to keep our schedule as we move forward. So once again, that amended record of decision will give us the final federal approval to begin construction and access those grants of $2.1 billion that that Frank Green talked about earlier. And that getting a shovel in the ground will be a huge step in getting this thing started and thus finished. So we also know that the bi-state tolling subcommittee is continuing to do their work to discuss potential toll rates. And they're looking at setting toll rates and policies for tolling the interstate bridge. So we look forward to their conclusions and letting us know the funding amount we can anticipate from those from the tolling discussion. So the team is still working on design elements for the bridge and bridge types. So we will be working and bringing more information back to this group as we start to develop options for bridge types and refine those options, as well as some of the aesthetic treatments that folks have been asking about. So the street connections, active transportation, and transit elements are also continued to be worked on, and details, more meat put on those bones as we're moving forward. So those are going to be, once again, some of the things that we will be updating this group on. We also anticipate initiating the procurement process for releasing the first construction packages. So we're actually looking at putting out a draft requests for proposals to the industry so we can get feedback from them and refine our efforts related to this RFP for the Columbia River Bridge. So this is a lot of work that's going to be going on, but once again, we can't afford to go dark. So we will be scheduling more meetings with this group, as well as the bi-state legislative, as well as our advisory groups, to keep everybody up to speed and let them know how things are moving forward. So with that, that is our last slide, and we will entertain any questions on either what's on the horizon or anything that we have covered today.
Thank you, Greg. Anybody on the ESG have any questions or comments about our meeting today? Doesn't look like it. So again, welcome to City of Portland Councilor Clark, and also Washington Secretary Transportation, Julie Meredith. So we're glad to have you here with us, and we're looking forward to working with all of you. And like Greg says, we will be scheduling more meetings, so stay tuned for those when they come, and you all will receive notification from that. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.